Every word spoken carries energy. When you speak lack, you invite lack. When you speak wealth, you call wealth to your door. The unseen forces answer to your voice. Declare now, money comes to me in perfect ways, under grace, in abundance. This is the command that unlocks the river of supply. Once spoken, you must not chase, doubt, or force. Do nothing after this, because the law is already at work. To resist, to question, to worry is to block the very current that seeks to deliver. Stand still in quiet faith. Money has already begun its journey to you. Opportunities will appear, doors will open, and supply will reach you in forms you least expect. Do nothing but trust. Wealth is on its way. The law never fails. The power of the spoken word is the power that shapes worlds. Every thought you clothe in speech becomes a seed cast into the invisible soil of life. When you speak of poverty, you plant poverty. When you declare abundance, you summon abundance. The invisible law is impartial. It does not argue, it only delivers. Words are commands to the unseen. What you say, you set in motion. If you say, I can never afford that, you have already locked the door of supply. If you say money comes to me freely and endlessly, you have already set angels of provision on their way. Your mouth is the gateway through which wealth enters or is blocked. Money does not respond to toil, nor to worry, nor to fear. It responds to word, backed by faith. There is no need to struggle for money, for struggle is resistance. The harder you push, the further it seems to move away. The river of supply flows easily, but when you try to force its direction, you stir mud in the stream. The command is simple: speak the word of wealth, release it, and do nothing. For it is not action but alignment that makes money appear. Say within yourself, I am aligned with the law of abundance. Money seeks me out, wealth knows my name. These words travel faster than thought, moving into the great substance from which all money comes. Once spoken with faith, you need not chase or beg. The law cannot fail. The harvest is inevitable. Most people block their own prosperity by canceling their words. They declare wealth in the morning but speak of debt by noon. They affirm riches one moment but complain of bills the next. The law hears both and delivers confusion. That is why you must be watchful of every word you let pass your lips. Let your speech be clear, unwavering, and abundant. Declare only what you desire, not what you fear. Money is energy. It flows where it is welcomed and multiplies where it is honored. When you say, I always have more than enough, you create a magnetic field around yourself that draws provision. When you say, I never have enough, you scatter the supply that was making its way to you. The difference is not in the bank account, but in the spoken decree. There is a law of non-resistance. The moment you resist, you block your good. To resist is to argue, to complain, to doubt. Each time you ask, where will the money come from? You resist. Each time you wonder, what if it doesn't arrive? You resist. Resistance is the shadow that stops the flow. But when you say, I have already received and do nothing more, the current is released. The supply is on its way. Do not mistake silence for inaction. Silence is power. Silence is trust. When you affirm wealth and then hold your peace, you are standing in the certainty that the law is working. Faith does not chase. Faith does not beg. Faith does not explain. Faith speaks once and rests. The universe has already received your order. Consider the seed planted in soil. You do not dig it up each morning to see if it is growing. You speak the word once and then you wait. The seed of wealth must grow in the invisible before it shows in the visible. Every time you worry, you are digging up the seed. Every time you doubt, you are tearing up the roots. Do nothing after speaking, and the harvest will come. Opportunities will begin to arrive without your planning. Money will show up through channels you never imagined. People will appear with offers, ideas, and doors you did not open. Your part was never to figure out the how. Your part is to speak and trust. The how belongs to the law. The when belongs to the law. The flow is certain. If you walk in fear, you bind your wealth. If you speak in faith, you release it. Fear says, I must work harder, I must scheme, I must push. Faith says it is already done. Money does not come by force. Money comes by command. A king does not chase his treasure, he declares it, and it appears. So too you are meant to declare wealth, not to chase it. Guard your tongue, refuse idle words, refuse complaint, refuse gossip about lack. Each careless sentence is a barrier, each negative phrase is a thief. But each word of abundance is a key, each declaration of prosperity is a door opening wider. So speak wealth into your life. Say, money comes to me in increasing amounts, from unexpected sources, under grace and in perfect ways. Then let it go. Do nothing after this. Do not ask again. Do not doubt. Do not explain. Stand still. The law has heard you. The money is flowing now. The law of non-resistance is the doorway through which every blessing enters. What you do not resist flows easily into your life, while what you fight against becomes your constant companion. Resistance is fear in disguise, and fear is the magnet that draws more of what you do not want. When you refuse to resist, you are saying to the universe, I trust the good that is already mine. You step out of the struggle and step into the flow. The harder you push against life, the more life pushes back. The more you fight for money, the more money escapes you. Striving, forcing, grasping, all are signals of lack. But when you release the tension, when you cease to struggle, the flow of supply begins to move freely toward you. The river does not fight to reach the ocean, it follows the path of least resistance and arrives without effort. So too does money, so too does opportunity when you stop resisting. Every time you worry, you resist. Every time you ask, what if it doesn't work out? You resist. Every time you hold tightly to what you have in fear of losing it, you resist. Resistance is a closed fist, while supply enters only into an open hand. The law of non-resistance teaches that when you let go, you do not lose, you gain. You make room for more. There is an infinite supply waiting to reach you, but it cannot pour into a vessel already full of fear, anger, or doubt. Release the fight. Release the struggle. Speak the word of wealth and then stand still. The moment you stop resisting, the law begins to arrange people, places, and circumstances for your good. Opportunities that seemed blocked begin to open. What once felt delayed arrives without effort. The universe is always ready to deliver, but it waits for you to step aside and let it flow. Consider how nature teaches this truth. The tree does not resist the wind. It bends, and by bending it survives. The stream does not resist the rock in its path. It curves around it, and by curving it reaches its destination. When you resist, you break. When you refuse to resist, you rise. The law is not about weakness, it is about strength through surrender. To release the fight is not to give up. It is to give over to a power greater than yourself. When money feels scarce, the natural impulse is to resist, to grasp tightly, to worry endlessly. But worry is resistance, and resistance blocks the current. Instead of saying, how will I pay this bill? Say, this bill is already paid in full by divine supply. Instead of saying, I don't know where the money will come from. Say, money flows to me freely and without end. The words open the channel, but your willingness to do nothing in fear keeps the channel clear. Non-resistance is not laziness. It is not inaction born of fear. It is deliberate trust, a refusal to be moved by appearances. When lack appears, you do not fight it. You deny its power with your word and refuse to resist. You say, this too is passing. My supply is endless. I receive all that belongs to me. By doing this, you shift from struggle into flow. Most people live as if life were a battlefield. They fight for recognition, fight for love, fight for money, yet every battle produces another battle. To resist is to remain locked in conflict. But when you stop fighting and affirm, what is mine comes easily, the war ends. Peace draws prosperity, calmness attracts money, a quiet spirit becomes a magnet for good. The law of non-resistance is the law of relaxation. Just as a swimmer floats when he ceases to struggle, so you rise when you stop forcing results. The current of abundance carries you where you need to go, but only if you release control. When you release, you discover that wealth is not something to chase, it is something that arrives when invited. Say to yourself, I no longer resist. I no longer fight. I allow supply to reach me in perfect ways. Each time you say it, the walls of resistance crumble. Fear loses its hold. Doors begin to open. Money begins to move. You have aligned yourself with the flow. Non-resistance is the art of standing still in faith. It is the refusal to give energy to worry, fear, or anger. It is the quiet knowing that what belongs to you cannot be withheld. It is the understanding that nothing is ever lost, that all things are restored, and that every delay is only preparation for greater good. When you stop resisting, you stop delaying. The good you have been waiting for has been waiting for you to release. The law never fails. The supply is already here. Faith in divine supply is the unshakable knowing that what you need is already provided before you ask. To live in faith is to walk in certainty, to stand in the invisible and declare it visible, to trust that the storehouse of heaven is never empty. The moment you believe, the supply begins its movement toward you. The moment you doubt, the flow halts. Faith is the key that unlocks the invisible vault where abundance is stored. The world teaches fear, it whispers of scarcity, it shouts of lack, but faith whispers louder in silence. All that belongs to you cannot be withheld. When you live in faith, you do not wonder if the money will come. You know it is already here. You do not chase opportunities, you attract them by the certainty of your belief. Faith is the magnet. Faith is the door. Faith is the current through which every form of wealth arrives. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot speak faith in the morning and speak doubt by night. Every word of fear cancels the word of faith. Every complaint weakens the command. Faith stands unmoved by appearances. Faith says, though I see lack, I declare abundance. Faith says, though I see delay, I know the supply is already mine. Faith says, though the purse is empty, the treasure is full. To live in faith is to see with the eyes of spirit, not the eyes of flesh. There is divine supply for every need. No matter how large the demand, the supply is greater still. If you need a single coin, it is there. If you need millions, they too are already accounted for in the invisible bank. Faith draws them from the unseen into the seen. It is not the size of the need that matters, it is the size of the faith. Most live as beggars before an overflowing table. They knock and plead while the door is already open. They ask, "Where is my provision?" When it is standing before them unseen, they believe that money must come by struggle, by toil, by endless effort. But faith knows supply does not come by sweat, it comes by alignment. Faith is rest in action. Faith is calm command. When you say, "Money comes to me easily, in perfect ways," and you believe it, you shift worlds. The unseen hears your word and arranges circumstances to deliver it. People are moved, events are stirred, doors are unlocked. You cannot see the mechanism, but you can trust the result. Faith does not ask how. Faith only says, "It is done." The greatest enemy of faith is fear. Fear is faith in the wrong direction. It is belief in loss, belief in failure, belief in lack. When you fear, you too are believing, but you are believing in the power of absence instead of the power of supply. The law answers both equally. That is why you must root yourself in faith. Speak it, stand on it, and act as if it were already so. To live in faith is to live as if the money were already in your hand, as if the opportunity were already yours, as if the bill were already paid. When you act from this certainty, you call it into being. The invisible does not resist certainty. The invisible resists doubt. Every time you waver, you delay. Every time you fear, you block. But each time you affirm and stand firm, the supply rushes to you with speed. Faith is not passive. It is not idle hoping. Faith is active knowing. When you say, "I believe," you must also live in the vibration of that belief. You cannot declare abundance and live as though poverty were true. You cannot affirm wealth and speak words of debt. Faith must be consistent. Each word, each thought, each action must agree with the command. The storehouse of divine supply is infinite. Nothing you receive diminishes it. No one else's abundance limits yours. The same law that provides for one provides for all. There is no shortage in spirit, no lack in the divine. When you believe, you are not taking from another, you are opening your own channel. The ocean does not run dry because one cup is filled. So too, the supply does not diminish because you receive. The law responds with precision. If you believe half-heartedly, you receive half-heartedly. If you believe fully, you receive fully. The harvest always matches the seed of faith planted. Plant words of wealth, water them with trust, and the harvest cannot fail. Plant words of doubt, Water them with fear, and the harvest is lack. The soil is neutral, the law impartial. It gives according to what you plant. Say now within yourself, I trust the divine supply. I release all fear of lack. I know that money, opportunities, and wealth flow to me now. Then refuse to contradict it with doubt. Stand firm. Do not waver. The moment you declare, the supply has already been set in motion. All that remains is for you to hold the line in faith until it appears. The unseen is more real than the seen. The visible is only the echo of what has already been declared. To wait until you see before you believe is to walk backward. To believe before you see is to walk in power. Faith makes the invisible visible. Faith draws tomorrow's wealth into today. Faith collapses delay into the present. Faith is the law of supply in action. Silent assurance is the strongest proof of faith, for the one who knows does not need to explain, justify, or repeat. The moment the word has been spoken, silence is the seal. Silence is not emptiness, it is confidence made visible. To remain quiet after declaring wealth is to show that you trust the law to act without interference. The loudest voice in the universe is the quiet certainty of a soul that knows its supply is already on the way. When you beg, you reveal doubt. When you plead, you confess uncertainty. But when you speak once and then rest in silence, you demonstrate mastery. The seed does not cry out to grow, yet it grows. The sun does not argue to shine, yet it shines. So too does your word, once spoken, move into the unseen and bring back its harvest. The proof of your belief is the calm you carry after declaring it. Assurance does not need noise. It does not need to repeat the same affirmation 10,000 times. It knows the first command was enough. To keep speaking from fear is to dig up the seed you planted. To remain silent after declaring abundance is to let the seed take root. The silence says, it is finished. The silence says, I have already received. The silence says, I wait in peace. Many delay their good by restless chatter. They affirm wealth and then tell others of their fears. They declare prosperity and then complain of bills. They affirm success and then whisper failure to themselves. Each careless word cancels the decree, but silence holds power, for silence does not undo what has been spoken in faith. If you cannot trust your words to remain consistent, let silence guard them. Silent assurance is the posture of the king. A king does not beg for his command to be carried out. He speaks once and rests. His silence is the proof that he knows his word cannot return void. So too must you speak your decree of wealth and then stand in stillness. Do not rush to prove it. Do not try to force it. Do not explain it away. Speak once, and then allow the law to do its perfect work. To live in silent assurance is to live above appearances. Even when lack stares you in the face, you do not speak of it. Even when delay surrounds you, you do not give it voice. You stand in silence, inwardly knowing that the answer is already moving. The outer world may still look empty, but the inner world has already delivered. The silence is proof that you believe the invisible more than the visible. Every word is a seed, and silence is the soil in which it grows. Without silence, the seed is exposed. Without silence, the roots are disturbed. Guard your word with silence as you would guard treasure with a lock. Let no idle speech undo what you have planted. Do not explain your faith to those who mock it. Do not justify your decree to those who doubt it. Speak once with conviction, and then let silence protect the harvest. Silent assurance is not passivity, it is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. Anyone can shout, anyone can argue, anyone can beg. But it takes power to stand still, to remain quiet while the outer world has not yet changed. That stillness is not emptiness, it is the sound of faith at work. It is the calm that comes from knowing the law has already received the order. When the mind is restless, when fear arises, return to silence. Do not fight fear with noise, simply breathe and recall that the decree was already given. Each time you worry, you are saying with your actions that you do not believe. Each time you repeat endlessly, you are confessing that you doubt the first word was enough. Silence cancels worry. Silence dissolves fear. Silence confirms belief. Say the word, money comes to me in perfect ways under grace in overflowing measure, then fall silent. Do not add, but how will it come? Do not add, what if it doesn't? Do not add, when will it arrive? That is resistance. That is doubt. The silence says, it is already done. And the silence invites the law to move swiftly. Opportunities arrive in silence. Wealth appears without noise. Doors open without announcement. The supply comes quietly, just as the seed grows in the dark soil unseen. Only later do you witness the visible fruit. The silence between the word and its manifestation is not emptiness. It is gestation. Trust it. Rest in it. Let it be. The one who speaks and then grows restless has not yet mastered faith. The one who speaks and then becomes silent is already living in the answered prayer. Their quiet calm is magnetic. Their stillness draws money, success, and prosperity. For nothing resists the one who rests in assurance. The silence is their signal to the universe. I know it is mine. The world may clamor with noise, but your wealth is born in silence. Speak once, speak clearly, and then let the silence carry it forward. The word has been spoken, the struggle released, the faith established, the silence sealed. Nothing more is needed. Wealth is not something to chase, it is something to allow. The law is already at work, arranging, moving, and delivering all that belongs to you. Stand still in certainty. Refuse fear, refuse doubt, refuse resistance. Rest in the quiet assurance that the supply is already flowing. You have commanded it, and it must appear. Money is moving to you now. Opportunities are forming for you now. Doors are opening for you now. Do nothing but believe. Do nothing but trust. Do nothing but know. The law never fails, and your word has already been fulfilled.